Hey everybody, Derek here to bring another video for The Walking Dead countdown to the start of Season 6. We are exactly 4 days away from the upcoming season premiere of Walking Dead. I'm really excited. I've got my Season 5 Rick Grimes beard going here. I don't grow the beard as well as Andrew Lincoln, but hey, I'm going to give it my best effort and be thankful for what I do have. And again, I just want to thank everybody that has been following along in my videos. And again, thank you very much for your support. What I want to do tonight is to give a video prediction for Nicholas. Will he be a friend or will he be a foe in the upcoming season 6? You know, in the first half, second half, more so towards the first half. I'm going to be giving predictions based off the comics, based off the TV show, and just based off of the trailer. I'm going to be showing pictures along the way. So if you'll look at your screen throughout, you will see photos that will kind of indicate some things. Just in case you are not caught up with Season 5, or if you do not read the comics, or you don't want to be spoiled in any way, don't watch the video because otherwise you will be spoiled. Okay. So if you'll tune to your screen here, you will see some pictures coming up right now. So the first thing that I'm going to do is talk about Nicholas from the comics. And of course, he is introduced in Volume 12 along with the rest of the Alexandria survivors. And when the group comes into the Alexandria safe zone, Nicholas is very hostile towards them. He's not very welcoming of them. In fact, Carl and Nicholas's son Mikey have a little bit of a confrontation right when they get there. You know, the fact that Carl's carrying a gun around and you know, he wouldn't let Mikey hold it or show it, I think was the problem. You know, it's something that Nicholas is very startled by. You know, obviously he has not been exposed to this kind of, you know, behavior, you know, thinking about kids carrying guns, killing walkers, people. This is something that Nicholas is not familiar with. And he sees Rick's group as a threat. And as time goes on, you know, he really does vocalize those opinions to others in the community. You know, the fact that these guys are, you know, outsiders that have come in and are basically taking over the community, because you have Rick becoming the constable, you have Michonne becoming his deputy, you have Abraham taking over the construction crew, and that doesn't sit right with Nicholas. And after the events in the comics where Regina dies and Pete gets killed by Rick, and after the walkers invade and they take care of that problem, Nicholas actually stages a coup in the Volume 15. He basically gets a hold of a gun, points it at Glenn, and tells him, you know, that he wants Rick's people out. You know, he's like literally appealing to everybody in the community, you know, hey, why are we letting these guys come in and take over our community? They're getting people killed. They're threats. They're not people that deserve to be here. And, you know, he doesn't really get that much support because a lot of people in the community do appreciate Rick and the rest of the group. They do recognize that they are more suitable for surviving in an environment like this. And of course, Rick approaches Nicholas during this and says, you know, do you have any idea who we are? You know, like, do you have any idea what's going on here? You know, he basically isn't going to take any of Nicholas's, you know, BS, but he decides to spare him. Unlike in the TV show where it was Glenn that really spared Nicholas, it was Rick. You know, Rick could have, you know, shot him down right then and there. But I think that, you know, in that moment, Rick was thinking about the greater good of the community. You know, he was thinking about, you know, if I start killing people, then Nicholas's point is proven. But if I forgive him and allow him a chance to, you know, mend his mistakes, then I gain an ally. And in a sense, after that, Nicholas really does become somebody who is loyal to Rick's group. You know, he and the rest of the community really do come to appreciate them. And when the Savior storyline comes along, he is there for them. Now, in the TV show, of course, things are somewhat similar, but things are also a little different. We know that storylines consistently change in the Walking Dead world. And, of course, Nicholas is hostile towards Rick's group also in the TV show. You know, he was definitely threatened by their appearance in the community. You know, and he and Aiden, kind of like to think of themselves as the providers, the big dogs, the people who know what they're doing and think that they can, boss people around outside of the walls. But, it turns out they really don't know what they're doing. And in fact, they've been leaving people behind, just similar to how Alexandria's construction crew was. If you were outside the safety part of the group, sorry, you're screwed, and, we see that Nicholas truly does display, indications of himself being a coward. Now, again, understanding that, everybody reacts to things differently in the Walking Dead world. I don't think that it's necessarily without merit that he be afraid, because he's very inexperienced. He realizes he's not as suitable for surviving in this world as he thought he was. And, unfortunately, as a result, in Season 5, Episode 14, his actions cause Noah to die. Instead of listening to Glenn, he ends up, going through the doors and getting Noah killed. And, of course, they get back to the community, and Glenn basically tells Nicholas, like, you're not going back out there. You obviously cannot handle yourself, and we don't want you putting anybody else's life in danger, including your own. So you're staying behind the walls. End of discussion. And Nicholas doesn't take that very well. And I think that he legitimately thought that Glenn was threatening him. Of course, we know he wasn't. And Nicholas, unfortunately, acts very irrationally. He ends up following... Glenn follows Nicholas out into the woods because he sees him going out there. And then Nicholas shoots Glenn in the shoulder. And basically the two attack each other throughout the season finale. Glenn almost gets eaten by walkers. And then there comes that moment when Glenn has the gun to Nicholas's head. And he has the option of whether he wants to pull the trigger and, settle the issue. No more Nicholas trying to kill them. Or does he forgive him? And Glenn chooses the latter. He does not pull the trigger. He forgives Nicholas. I mean, kinda. I think that in that moment, and what Steven Yeun has said in interviews, is that the reason why he didn't kill Nicholas was because he saw a little bit of himself in Nicholas. And Glenn recognizes that. When we see Glenn in the early seasons, season 1, season 2, yes, he is brave. In some respects, but in other respects, we realize that he wasn't necessarily, the efficient warrior that we see him to be in the later seasons, like season 3 and season 4 and 5. He, still has difficulty, killing walkers and being involved in violent, interactions with individuals. And really, Glenn is one of the few people left out of the group that has not killed a human. And I think that speaks volumes to his character, and it definitely allows him to relate a little bit more to this normal world. And that's what Glenn wants. He sees Alexandria as the part, the part of the world that can be rebuilt as close as possible to normalcy. And if he shoots Nicholas, he's ruining that for himself and for everybody else, because he's turning the community into something else. So he decides to spare Nicholas's life. Now, just thinking about, what's going to be happening in season 6 with Nicholas, I don't think that he's necessarily going to be a foe towards the group. I really think that in many ways, there are some indications that he is going to at least be somewhat cooperative with Rick's group, or more likely Glenn. One of the things that I thought about was, well, is Glenn going to tell Rick exactly what happened? I don't think he will. I think that once Glenn gets back and realizes, that Rick has killed Pete, if he tells Rick, yeah, Nicholas, ambushed me in the woods and shot me and attacked me and left me for walkers, but hey, I spared his life and brought him back. I think that Rick will commit a second killing that night. I don't think he's going to let Nicholas go in that, state. Now, that's not to say that, people won't find out later. I think in a sense that Glenn's either going to do one of two things. He's either going to cover for Nicholas, he's going to lie and say that something else happened, or he's going to tell the truth, but he's going to be very convincing for why they shouldn't kill him. And I think that that might be something that goes on in the episode, because if you remember a scene in the trailer, which I'll show you here, you have Rick holding a gun at somebody that we don't know. The trailer would like us to think that it's that it's Morgan. And you have Rick saying, "You think you can take this community away from us, from Daryl, from Michonne, from Glenn, from me? Do you have any idea who you're talking to?" That exact, wording was used against Nicholas in Volume 15 when they have that confrontation. And that is exactly what he says to Nicholas. And I would not be surprised if Nicholas is the person that, Rick is saying that to. That in a sense, this is Rick's medium ground with Nicholas, because Nicholas has gone out of his way to hurt somebody in his group. But I think that Rick is also going to realize this other principle of, if I start killing people, it's not going to be, pretty. We're already in a situation where half of the, community, pretty much anybody that's a member of the Alexandria community, is very concerned with Rick's group. They're different people with different, survival skills and ways of looking at the world, and that's something that they're not going to necessarily agree with. And I think that, if you start killing people without reason for doing so, then it doesn't really, allow for this group to come together. And I think that that might be something that Rick realizes. So I would not be surprised if, Glenn does tell Rick about what Nicholas did, and then Rick confronts him in that way. And basically, holds the gun, threatens him. Nicholas, explains himself. And then Rick basically says, "You ever do anything else to my group again, you're done." And I think that, really the experience, I think, is going to change Nicholas a lot. We see several scenes in the trailer where he's fighting off walkers with Glenn. I mean, we see a scene where, Glenn is shooting at a walker, which I'm assuming might be target practice. I think he might be showing Nicholas. There may be other survivors in that group too, but you see Glenn, taking, a shot. And I think that that really is, teaching people how to fire weapons. Because not everybody really knows how to do it. And if they do, they don't know how to do it well. I mean, did you see Aiden, shooting that walker in, Spend? Whenever you saw Tobin and Bruce and everybody else shooting, they were not that accurate. Yeah, they killed a couple walkers, but you can't be spraying all those bullets and wasting them and, causing unnecessary noise. So we see that, and then we later see scenes where Nicholas and Glenn are fighting side by side, killing a big group of walkers. And the one thing that I thought about was, it may be that the two of them get trapped somewhere together, because that's a big group. And I don't know if they're in the community in this scene or if they're outside of it. But, I think this is really going to be a test for Nicholas to see, if he can overcome, his fears and work with people. Is he going to save Glenn's life? And I think that this is an important moment for Nicholas. I would not be surprised if, again, they get cornered, or if they get, to a point where they're fighting and then Nicholas pulls Glenn into a shop or something, something along those lines. But we may see Nicholas redeeming himself in the upcoming season premiere, or maybe later on. Because you do see how it almost looks like this dead end alley, but it may not be, where they're firing at the walkers. But I just think that at this point, it would be foolish for Nicholas to attempt to do anything against Rick's group. I think that would be very foolish, and I think that it would really spell the end to his character. Now, on the other hand, they may be writing an end to his character, where he doesn't necessarily learn his lesson, and as a result of that, we may see Glenn take action and kill Nicholas once and for all. And because that's something that I think would be very, very interesting for Glenn's story, is if he would have to kill a person. Because he hasn't had to do that yet. And I don't think he kills anybody in the comics either. But anyways, that's something that I think would really change his character, and I think it would definitely have a big impact on him, to really put him in doubt, about this community. Can they really bring these individuals together? Can they really trust each other? And that may be a challenge. That may be something that we might see, because it is clear that there are individuals that, may not be agreeing with what Rick is saying, and they may do some drastic things. I mean, you see Aaron walking around the community with a knife in his hand. Does that necessarily mean that uh, he's going after Rick? Is he just defending himself? Is he going after somebody else? You see that. And then you also see this guy played by Ethan Embry, Carter, who is outspoken against Rick. So you do have people that are going to be dissenting from Rick's, opinion. And if Nicholas is one of them and he decides to take action, then I think it would set up a very interesting conflict for him and for the story. But I think that overall with my prediction, I think that Nicholas is going to be somewhere in the middle. Not totally a friend, but not a foe. I think that he's really going to be trying to find a place to fit in, to really, save his own life and realize, he does have a son, maybe a wife. In the comics, he does have a wife living. We know he has Mikey in the television show. I think he needs to, realize he's going to get his act together. And I think that he realizes that, Glenn did not have to save him. That was something that I think is going to weigh heavily on Nicholas. I think that is something that he's going to take into consideration. Realizing that this may be the moment that he realizes Rick's group really is not that bad. And in the comics, he does have that very similar epiphany. He was like, wow, you saved me. You could have killed me. I was threatening you with a gun. I was going crazy, and you saved me. You spared me from being killed. And I think that was something that did weigh heavily on him. And it does have an impact on him in the comics. And I think it will on the TV show as well. But again, if the circumstances change, he may go along with his fellow Alexandrians. We're just going to have to wait and see. But I think the signs are pointing to that he will at least be supportive of Glenn, if not the rest of Rick's group. And that may be because he was saved, and it may be because he's going to get a stern talking to by Rick. So we'll see what happens. So with that, I'm going to bring this video to a close. I want to thank all you guys for watching. If you guys have any questions or comments, don't be afraid to leave them. Feel free to subscribe. I do have more videos coming. And if you guys have any suggestions for future videos that you would like to see, please do not be afraid to suggest them. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and thank you very much for watching.